Hello, everyone, and welcome to Journeys in Design, Salvage Scotland 2020. My name's John Ennis, producer, curator at Journeys in Design. This is the inaugural outing for Salvage Scotland, and it's a voyage around Scotland's coastal communities with a particular interest in sustainable design, art, and industry. And we'll be taking our journey right around Scotland, starting in the west and ending in the east. And we have a material focus this year on seaweed. So it's been a wonderful opportunity to meet some great initiatives around Scotland in maritime communities, not least of which is the wonderful Scottish Maritime Museum in Irvine, where we begin our voyage. And so it's a great privilege for me to be able to speak today with Exhibition and Events Officer, Nicola Scott. Hi, Nicola.
Hi, John.
How are you doing?
I'm good, thanks. I'm very good.
Excellent. Now, listen, I'm in Edinburgh in our boat shed, aka my living room. And you're not in Irvine yourself. You're in Glasgow.
Yes, I'm based in Glasgow, so I'm working in my home office, aka the dining table.
Good stuff, good stuff. But we're speaking in this odd situation, and Salvage Scotland would have been a 6-week series of exhibitions, walks, talks, and workshops. But we've narrowed it down with some focus in the current circumstances.
Yeah.
Slightly blending online with on the ground, but mainly online. And it's been a very interesting time for everyone. How has your lockdown been?
It's been a mixed bag, but yeah, I think I'm used to working at home now. Like, I've been on furlough for a bit, but there was also a time just before I was furloughed where I was working from home. So I'm just getting back into things because I'm just off of furlough.
Yeah, and it's quite a process for everyone, this notion of having really to literally lock down in our houses and minimize contact, but still connected. And I've been very grateful to you and the other collaborators as part of Salvage Scotland that you've been so gracious in helping us maintain a programme for this year. Excited that we'll launch more fully next year, but really inspired by many of the initiatives that we'll be featuring this year. I have come from Irish shores. Your accent is not either an Ayrshire accent or a Glasgow accent. Tell us a little bit about your journey. You sound like a Londoner.
I'm from down south, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm from London, and I was brought up there. But my parents are both from Scotland, and I'm multi-ethnic. I've got a mixed background. So basically, there's a bit of Jamaican in there as well. So I didn't go that far. I went back to Scotland to study. So I was at Glasgow University for a while,
right?
Back in the mid 2000s, and after that. Yeah, I came back to London in order to get a heritage traineeship.
Right,
basically,
I was
and some volunteer work.
Right.
Yeah.
That volunteer work, where did that take you? Where was that based?
Well, it was actually really hard because it was just after the recession. So, I moved back down in 2010, and I wanted to be there for 6 months and maybe get some heritage work and skills, and then come back to Scotland. But it ended up taking me 4 years to find something that fit.
So after 2008, there was a real clamp down, wasn't there?
There were just no jobs. I couldn't even get unpaid work. So it was quite difficult. So I ended up getting a job in marketing for a while, but I always knew that I wanted to do heritage. So first I ended up working for an arts-based mental health charity who were doing heritage walks, actually, which were all funded around the Olympic Games. So that was actually a wonderful time to be in London. There was a real sense of community and like the global world coming together as well. So I did some heritage tours for them, which led for me to apply for a heritage traineeship, which was HLF funded, but it was run by this arts and cultures organisation called, what were they called? Cultural Cooperation. They've changed their name, so they're called Culture and now.
Okay.
And it was a traineeship which wanted to basically integrate the workforce a bit more, have more diverse representation within the heritage sector. So me and 13 other people quite young people. I was probably the oldest, but yeah, of like different backgrounds and social and economic backgrounds were placed in different places all over the UK.
Fantastic.
And I was based at, yeah, it was great. Sorry, you were saying?
No, that's great. No, I was just wondering where you're about to say where you were placed.
Yeah, it was the Horniman Museum in Forest Hill, London, and that's a great museum. It's got a very engagement heavy, lots of school tours, and they've got a fantastic handling collection. So I was actually based within the learning department. So I ran a community engagement project, which was arts based, and we ended up doing an exhibition at the end of it. And that was probably ran for about 3 months. It was very good learning experience. And then I also worked on a collections review in the anthropology collection. So they just basically for 3 years, I came in right at the end, review the whole collection and see what they have, because that's the thing about museums. You've got like 99% of your collection in boxes.
That you don't see.
Yeah, and you might not have seen it for decades.
And the Horniman is one of those, I haven't been there, so thank you for the tip to go, but it reminds me of places I have been to London that they appear to be specialist, but they're just extraordinary. I think of the Lord Leighton House in Holland Park and the Jeffrey Museum, these little gems, but Horniman's not so little.
No, like, well, it's got a lovely garden, which is about, I think it's 16 acres, and like they grow their own vegetables there. So they sell those in the cafe and the salads, but they also do a lot of teaching and learning around that, and use the gardens as well as the collection.
So
yeah,
you really had some and brilliant working experience. It must be. And then it was back to Scotland at that point?
Yeah, well, I actually, right at the end of my traineeship, I got, the day I was leaving with no job to go to, I got an email saying that I'd got a job at the National Army Museum, which is based in Chelsea.
Okay.
So that was a really unusual collection to work with, because I hadn't really worked with uniform collections, and they've got a vast uniform collection, but they also have things like tanks. Not that I had to move the tank, but we did a major decant, and that's what led me to Scotland, because I then got a job at the Hunterian Museum at Glasgow University, and they were working on a major decant where they were basically consolidating about 12 different sites, different tiny museum stores into one massive one. Yes, and it's at Kelvin Hall, which is just opposite from the Kelvin Grove Art Gallery. So we share that facility.
What a complex, what an amazing cultural hub.
Yeah, it really is turning into that, because you've got the Transport Museum, you've got Kelvin Grove Art Gallery, and then you've got Kelvin Hall, which houses the Hunterian and like research and learning facilities upstairs. It also has National Library Scotland's Moving Image Archive, which is a fantastic facility that I've used on a number of occasions to research exhibitions. And we've also got Glasgow Life there as well. So there's a gym and a cafe and all these museum things as well. It's quite unique. What
a great time to be working there.
Yeah, it was, until I got a better job. No.
Hey, no.
Well, I now obviously work at the Scottish Maritime Museum,
which brings us to Irvine.
The exhibition. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So you're exhibition and events officer, and
that's right.
A wealth of experience you are bringing to that job. And actually, as you've described your experience in those main places, the Horniman and Kelvin Hall, amazing to be able to channel that into such an extraordinary place, which is the Scottish Maritime Museum. I've been really grateful for the support that the SMM have given Journeys in Design for Salvage Scotland. It's really wonderful to be collaborating with such an amazing place.
We're happy we're collaborating with you too. Like, we're very much looking forward to having your pop-up exhibition within the museum.
Great. When the time is right, I'm looking forward to that as well, and that hopefully will be next year. And so just to pause a moment, just to describe the Scottish Maritime Museum itself. I've been now a couple of times, but to my shame, in the many journeys I took between Edinburgh and Northern Ireland, including by bus and car and across the ferry at Cairnryan, I never properly stopped in Irvine. And what an extraordinary complex. And this amazing building, this building
it's vast.
Repositioned. Tell us a little bit about the campus.
Yeah, so basically the Lint House building is the huge building that you're talking about. Basically used to be in Govan in Glasgow, and it was a shipbuilder's warehouse. So it actually stretched like it was 3 times as big. It went much further back, but we took this section, I say we, but the museum years ago, they took that building from Govan and they moved it to Irvine to start the museum, or establish it in that building more. So it's huge, and they say they brought it brick by brick, but I think that's a little bit of an exaggeration.
Okay, sections were brought, but it's stunning, and it is a big building, so there's a sense of space about it. But of course the objects themselves very often big boats and big engineering kits.
Yeah, the Waverley's boilers in there as well. So these are just like vast, huge, heavy metal things. So yeah, but the exhibitions that I put on happen in the temporary exhibition space, which is it's a contained space. So like obviously for museum objects, which aren't massive bits of ships, like smaller things, you need the conditions to be right, so the humidity and the temperature. So that space is climate controlled, so we can put our art collection on display in there, and also have loans.
And indeed textiles, and I think it was a beautiful exhibition by a weaver that I saw when I was there last time.
Yeah, that's Katie Russell. She's an artist and tapestry weaver, and she was inspired by the Battle of Jutland that happened in World War I. It was a naval battle, a very huge naval battle between the German and British fleets. And a lot of lives lost on both sides. I think it's over 8,500 men died. But she's looking back at that and the legacy of that battle, including some really interesting multi-beam scans which were done at the centenary. So in 2016, Dr. Innes McCartney and the Sea War Museum Jutland got together and they scanned the wreckages of the ships, which kind of informed the story of the battle, because people were finding out where the ships got hit and what happened to them, and they really discovered some really interesting things. But Katie saw the multi-beam scans, and they're really unusual because they've got these reds and these acidy greens and yellows in them, and she's like woven them into tapestry. So she's taken this really kind of historic craft and made these contemporary pieces. So there's the multi-beam scans. She's also been inspired by the memorial garden and the statues within that garden, and then just the battle itself, so explosions and the smoke and things like that. So it's a real mix.
The output is absolutely extraordinary, and you get a sense of that rigorous, layered research that she went through and the people she met. You feel that in the work that's there, and it's beautifully curated. I mean, it's a lovely story all told. No, it is wonderful.
She went to the Sea War Museum and she got funding from Creative Scotland to do some field work, basically. And and we're really happy that when we open on the 7th of August, so next month, that we've extended the exhibition, giving people the opportunity to see it, because obviously it's shut before.
I'm so pleased to hear that. And on that, but on that notion of having a closed space, are you you're moving into this reopening? I think, is it the 7th of August?
Yeah. So there's a lot of things going on at the museum. There's a lot of work going on. We're putting up screens. There's a one-way system in place. I've altered the space in the exhibition a tiny bit to allow for a one-way system. So
you just do circuits then? Yes.
And it's
sensible.
Like you were saying, the building's so big. The Lint House is such a good space that it's easy to you can social distance quite easily.
So much better than many other spaces. It's wonderful. Yeah.
So you just have to go in and out of the different boats and bits of machinery. And
it's a joy to do it. It's a joy to do it. And actually, I will notice, we'll just mention this George Wiley sculpture, the beautiful, smaller exhibition on his work. He's one of my favourite Scottish artists. So it was a joy to see that there as well. And he was very engaged, of course, in maritime.
Yeah.
So, the other thing that we had talked about or engaging with this year, which has also been affected, is the Visit Scotland, coasts and waters. It's clear the muddies are a bit water's a bit muddied on how that will exactly happen next year, but it's opening to do with Ayrshire
Oh, sorry. With North Ayrshire Council, they were planning some summer events. There was going to be this really amazing festival called the Making Waves Festival, and that was going on in July. I think there's plans for that to happen next year. Obviously, things are still up in the air, but I don't see why we wouldn't be able to go ahead. Like, it was going to be really great because it was championing the local businesses, and
it was a beautiful thing that we talked about you doing. Yeah,
Irvine Beach. Yeah.
I mean, on that subject, Irvine Beach, where we will launch on Sunday. This is being recorded just before that launch. What a gorgeous coastline. And
it's beautiful.
Notice that Ayrshire coast is really a treat. It's very beautiful.
Yeah, and you can see Arran as well. I think it's Arran across the way, and it's just sometimes it's so stunning. On a good day.
Absolutely stunning. The whole coast is lovely. So I'm looking forward to being back there. And also, thinking of views out and horizons, you've got this fascinating project. One of the things that I love about the museum is your use of imagery around the place, including of a boat form in your
yes.
And I'm intrigued because I was reading about, and we were talking about the Scanning the Horizon project. And
so that was
this stage when we're all having to think about blending our online and our on the ground cultural offerings. What timing that you have this already underway?
Yeah, we had this fantastic project that started in 2018. It's called Scanning the Horizon, and it was basically putting a lot of our collections online, but in a digital form. So we had a 3D digitalization officer called Marta Pilarska, and she basically ran the whole project, and she so she 3D scanned all these models. I say models, she 3D scanned all these actual objects. And when I say objects, I'm not talking about tiny little things, like massive boats.
It's extraordinary project.
Yeah, she got on scaffolding, and she took all these photos and turned them into these incredible, like, really amazingly realistic 3D models that you can go online and you can spin them around 360 degrees, but also you can touch them. And so when you touch them, obviously you're probably doing this with a mouse, but some people have touch screens, you can pick these numbers and it will tell you lots of different information about the vessel that you've picked. So that's on our website. It's also on the Sketchfab website.
Sketchfab is and it's part of an international project, in fact.
That's correct.
Wonderful.
So there's a lot of different museums and organisations, like including the Smithsonian, and basically all of these 3D items aren't subject to any copyright. So they're free and accessible for education, for anything anyone wanted to use them. If they wanted to put one of the boats in a computer game, they could. So it's such an amazing resource.
That's fantastic. Yeah. Just a wee shout out again for Marta. I worked in an project called Our Linen Stories, and she was helping us photograph Damask or explore different ways of it. But she really is one of those unsung heroes, and she's helped a lot of heritage monuments and interesting things across the country, really, and create a wonderful archive. But to imagine her over one of these big hulking boats is amazing.
I know, like in her high vis and her hat and with her camera. She's just like so inventive and like her background, which she's a conservator, but also she's got all these like digitalization photographic skills. It's just, we couldn't have done it without her, basically. It's a fantastic project. Obviously we got funding from Museum Gallery Scotland, so that was useful too, and we funded it ourselves, but Marta put everything together, and she basically, I think in the end she made 1,500, nearly 1,500 models, like 3D models out of the objects. So yeah, it was a fantastic project that's all online.
As you've noticed, or noted rather, floating over the little numbered logos lets you into lots more information. So really, if you can't manage to get to the Scottish Maritime Museum, it's an amazing resource. So I'd certainly recommend.
I should also say, like, as well as the models and being able to do that, there's a couple of 3D virtual tours as well, which are online. So yeah, there's a lot of things to see.
Now, we mentioned the logo and a particular a very charming boat that sits in the grounds of the Scottish Maritime Museum.
That would be Spartan. Like in our logo, right at the top, sometimes there's a little vessel, a boat, and it's a puffer, and it's Spartan. And that was the first vessel in our collection. So I think it's what kicked everything off.
Right.
And it's the only surviving Scottish puffer, which is the name, the kind of nice name that people give them, the term of endearment.
And these are small passenger boats?
Well, no, they were like cargo vessels. So basically puffers were developed in the 1850s, and they went through the waterways and the canals of Scotland, well, and other places, but and they were to, you know, move cargo. And then in the 1870s, they started to visit the Highlands and Islands and bring them things. So they're a really good link for the islanders to the mainland. And Spartan was built in, was it 1942, by Hayes and Sons, and yeah, and it works delivering cargo. It's basically 66 foot long, and that's the longest you could have to go down a waterway.
A canal, right?
Yeah, so it was a waterway canal. So that's that, and yeah, and the wonderful thing about it is obviously we saved it. We got it in 1982. That's when we had a different name, but then obviously we became the Scottish Maritime Museum. But it now sits right outside the museum. And when we open on the 7th of August next month, we'll be opening not only with Woven Waves, the Jutland Tapestries exhibition, but Spartan's having its own exhibition about puffers. So that will be in the hull. So that's a really unique and interesting space to have the exhibition in an actual puffer.
I love it.
Yeah, and I should tell you why they're called puffers, because I always forget. So puffers are called puffers because they used to like let out puffs of smoke and they make a little puffing noise. But that was only the first kind, because they had a certain type of engine that did that, and they don't do that, but the name stuck. So
the name stuck. So there were puffers to the 50s. And obviously in relative, you know, probably still in the living memory use for many people. And what an important, as you mentioned, their use in the Highlands and the islands, an important link to the mainland, which we'll be following ourselves. So very exciting times as we move out of lockdown and cultural institutions like yourself are to open up. I think for me, it was a really heartwarming experience to go through the different exhibitions. I felt in touch with communities and with people. There seems to be a very strong link in the exhibitions that you and the stories that you tell through your objects and exhibitions and individual communities. And I learned a lot about how different communities actually operate in coastal waters. So it's fantastic. I'm sure many other people like me visit somewhere and think, gosh, they must be, if not in trouble, facing real challenges after a period of basically no visitors and all the rest of it. Are there ways that folk can support the museum?
Yes, we'd like to have a sense of community, and we want local people from Irvine to come, and as well as tourism as well, because we're right next to the train station with really good links to Glasgow. But for people visiting online, or if they want to come to the museum, because we will be open, they can become a friend, and you can just do that online. So we've got a friend scheme, and it gives you access to the museum for free for 12 months, for a whole year when you buy it, and it's £30. You also get a discount in the shop, and also reduced rates for some workshops, and you get to come to preview exhibition openings and things like that. But obviously that won't be happening right now, but there's so many other things. It's definitely worthwhile, and it definitely helps the museum.
Well, that's fantastic.
On its exhibitions.
Come along, support it by actually being there, because it's a fantastic space, and consider membership. Listen, it's been so good to speak with you, Nicola. Thank you very much.
Thank you, John.
To further voyages in the future, and good luck with the opening.
Thank you. Thanks very much.
Cheers for now.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.